Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. Ed Good decided to write about something he created with love and affection. And by the time you're done hearing about Bob the Skeleton on the trail, you might be hooked too. Hey, Ed, how are you?
Great.
Good. This is Alice calling about Bob the Skeleton on the trail.
So how are you?
I'm living the dream. How are you? Where are you? Where are you living?
I'm in Michigan.
Oh, what do you do there?
Well, I'm kind of retired, but my wife says we need to do other things. So we're restoring a house up about 100 miles north of where we're at, in just east of a town called Frankenmuth, Michigan. It's
Beautiful.
a touristy trap, but we're out in the country.
Nice. What did you do when you were working?
You know, I wanted to be a professional baseball player, but I couldn't throw a curve and I couldn't hit a curve. We had a family business, which was landscaping and greenhouses, and working with family sometimes is stressful. So I took some years off and joined the Navy and got to travel around the world to see how other things were, and came back, got married, had kids, retired, played softball, and there's my history.
And now you're writing about Bob the Skeleton.
You know, it's kind of ironic. I think it's something about I lost a bet, but I realistically, if I could take this book in my hand and take it to my 10th grade English teacher and say, hey, look, you were the one that said I couldn't put two sentences together. But here, I'm a published author. So,
Did Bob come to you in a dream? I mean, how did this come about?
no, Bob, we used to decorate a lot for Christmas time, but it gets to the point I don't like cold weather anymore. And it seemed like I'm up on ladders in sleet and snow and putting lights up. And I go, that's just not as much fun as when I was much younger. So
Yeah.
my kids like to decorate for when they were younger for Halloween, and the weather's nicer. I happened to be in, and I don't remember if it was a Home Depot or a Michael's or where it was, and it's been a number of years ago. And you search the 70% off bin, and here's this dusty old skeleton. It's like a 5.5-foot skeleton, and it looks like he's had a rough life. I mean, I think he's been in and out of storage, probably a couple of years. And I go, well, you know what? He was 70% off or whatever. So I said, well, let's take him home. And, well, and then, we put him out with the other decorations for Halloween and, the pumpkins. And I do a lot of woodworking and made a lot of wood pumpkins and things. And then, here it's about the first week of November, and this is a few years ago. And I go, I don't have a box big enough for him. And I go, well, let's, if you just pack him up, he may or may not have brittle bone disease. So I said, the chance of me packing him up and, falling out of the attic and out of a box, there's a good chance that, he could break bones. So I said, let's leave him on the front porch. And, Thanksgiving was coming, and I had made some wooden turkeys, so I fit him for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I put a Santa hat on him, and he sits on the front porch just kind of watching. He watches the world go by.
So he's a skeleton for all seasons.
He is, and the most popular season. I think baseball season he loves, but I think we all live vicariously through whatever our first book or writings were. So, but his favorite time of the year, believe it or not, is St. Patrick's Day.
Oh.
We're a short walk from down the city that we live in, and our front porch is 5 or 6 feet from the sidewalk, and he had a green hat and a green vest and green suspenders, and my daughter one year brought a green plastic mug and put it in. He's not real flexible, so it looked like it was pouring out. But I had him actually sitting in a tree right by the sidewalk, and people that may or may not have been overserved were stopping and taking pictures with him. And I think there was a time where there was 15 or 20 people standing behind him in my driveway taking pictures of him.
Well, go Bob. So this is a book. Does Bob have thoughts about these various seasons and the people that take pictures with him?
Bob is, he's quite tight-lipped. I think I think he kind of goes with the flow.
Yeah.
And I think the one time I had him actually sitting next to a tree, and we had like a freezing rain ice storm, and when he got froze down to the dirt. I don't think he cared for that. But
yeah.
He's pretty easygoing. He doesn't say much.
Well, in your book, how do you lay out the story of Bob the skeleton?
This how it all evolved was it just kind of happened. He would be out on the front porch, and you just for Christmas time, and just see what goes by, and the kids that waiting for the school bus, and seeing him in a Santa hat, and you can hear people, and he's kind of I don't know if he's infamous or famous, but he's been was in the local Facebook pages a few years ago, and I know the one time that for some reason he wasn't on the front porch. I think he was in the backyard in the pool. People came by, and I was out watering the flowers, and said, what happened to the skeleton? I go, well, he's in the pool.
He's taking a bath.
It's 90 some degrees. Where would it be a better place? So, I've had people concerned when they didn't see him.
Well, now can they stop by and pick up a book about him?
I do have books here, but people that have stopped and talk about him. He's kind of an icebreaker, and I said, well, he's in a published book, and I go, believe it or not, it's on this little bookstore called Amazon. You may or may not have heard of it. And I go, he's on Apple, and I do the local libraries here. I've taken copies to that. In fact, the city it's not a city, it's one traffic light town that we're moving to. Mm-hmm. I took a copy up to their library. So, and I got some feedback. And in fact, the one lady that I'm in an art council with, she's 92 or 93, and I got a letter from her the other day. And she goes, I was going to give her a book at the meeting. She goes, no, you don't have to do that. I bought one. I go, okay. I said, well, at least bring it in so I can, autograph it. She goes, okay. So she brought it in, and she goes, well, I got to get it right back to my son. Well, the book passed through, I think, 6 or 7 hands. And so that was a good thing.
That's a very good thing. Is there a moral to Bob's story?
I think with all that we've gone through in this pandemic, and we all got tired of. In fact, we just got tired of listening to the news that we didn't turn the news on. You turn on. We're big proponents of Turner Classic movies and older movies, and sometimes you watch. You go back to some of the nostalgia stuff because you just got tired of it. Bewitched and Mayberry RFG and the Carol Burnett show, and you forgot how funny that was. And yes, what had happened was a serious thing, but you just have to got to take a step back and, you know, take another cup of coffee. And I didn't want to write this. You know, it never started out as a book. I would write paragraphs and paragraphs, and somehow editor got a hold of me. She goes, "Can you send it to me?" And I go, "Well, really, I can't because it's on this piece of paper and that piece of paper." I said, give me 4 or 5 weeks. Let me put something together, and I'll edit it myself. And I edited it about 4 or 5 times. And I said, but I don't want it to be a long read. And I said, if you want it to be on quote unquote sex, drugs, and rock and roll, this isn't it. I said it's going to be a 10-year-old can pick it up and read it. A teenager, an adult, an older person can pick it up and just it's a quick read, and when it's all said and done, it just put a smile on your face, and that's what I kind of tried to do. And the follow-up book that I've been working on is same title but On the Road. So I think Maury Safer did a thing on 60 Minutes where they did, there was a section of On the Road.
Right.
And it's
Right.
kind of like
I think it was Charles Kuralt.
Oh, Charles Kuralt. He's out there on the front porch, I think, and he's probably freezing his bones off today because he's kind of in the middle of, he took off his Nutcracker T-shirt and his between Christmas and St. Patrick's Day. So I don't know what comes. It's got to be a National Hot Dog Day or National something day.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Google it. There's probably something. Or put a scarf on him. Where's he going? Where's he traveling to? Do you have an itinerary yet?
Well, I've done bits and pieces. He's taken a couple of road trips to our new house, and you get straight. You got to seatbelt him in because you don't want him bouncing around.
Yeah,
and,
no.
You get kind of people kind of smiling and pointing, driving on the freeway, and he's been to the golf course. He sits up on. My daughter has property in northern Michigan, which is about 4 miles from Lake Michigan, and we had him picking up seashells and Petoskey stones, and then sitting on the rocks watching the sunset go down.
Oh, sweet! That must be a beautiful shot right there.
I wanted to include pictures. There's a number of pictures in the book because the pictures kind of tell a story as well as the words.
I love it. Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to the follow-up. I really am. So I'll be talking to you again, all right?
Okay.
You have a great day. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Alice. You have a great day, too.
Take care. Bye-bye. Dez Tovar is up next, and I have had the pleasure of talking to him about all of his books. This one, the fourth in his series, The Hollers, Transtemporal.
Hey, Alice, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. So I heard you wrote a book.
I did. The fourth one is it's The Hollers, Transtemporal. The actual name is Transtemporal. So it's an alternative ending to my third book, actually.
All right. So let's assume people don't know what's come before this.
I've had 3 books before this. It's Bellowing Hollers, Whispering Hollers, and then Howling Hollers. And I was actually doing the last read on Howling Hollers in 2020, and I always multitask, so I was watching the news, and it was a lot of I call it the plandemic in my book. The pandemic information was going through, the social distancing, closing schools, closing businesses and everything. And I was on chapter 46, which is titled Transtemporal. And I came up with this idea for this book. And it's kind of, it puts the Tovar spin on all the mandates that were going on in the world, that type of stuff. So kind of explains a lot of what was going on in 2020 in my version.
So you call it the plandemic as opposed to the pandemic.
Correct. Yeah. So
Explain that for me.
Yeah. It was really shocking with everything that was going on. I mean, everybody was there. Then for example, the toilet paper shortage or whatever was going on with that. All of a sudden, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and write this book and just kind of explain in my version what's going on.
Okay, so tell me, what's in your book?
It's basically an alternative ending. My other books, it leaves the ending wide open, and it kind of frustrates some of my readers. It's like, man, when's the next one coming out? Well, this one, like I said, it's an alternative ending, and it's kind of a doomsday kind of book. So, I don't want to give too much about it, but yeah, it's
an alternative ending to your series, because
yes.
This is part of a series.
Correct.
Tell me about your series. So I've never heard anything about this series.
So on Bellowing Hollers, it's basically these two gals go out on this road trip, and they end up in this town that they can't escape from. And just a whole bunch of different stuff happens. It's a suspenseful mystery is what it is. And so, they finally get out of Bellowing Hollers. Well, it's like a couple years later, they go on another trip together to Howling Hollers. And each book, Howling Hollers is my third one. Like in Howling Hollers, it pretty much explains what is going on in the world. There's the Earth's guardians, that are protecting this world. So it explains a lot, each step of each book. For example, on this transtemporal, the Earth's guardians have been taken out. So there's nobody protecting this world anymore. So, that's the spin on that book. But like the Howling Hollers, it's still wide open. So I'm just getting ready for the next,
Well, tell me about Angela and Joan. They're the Earth's guardians, right?
Yes, Angela and Joan are Earth's guardians. They've been guarding Angela's been guarding the world for, centuries. And Joan, they're in a weird way of vampires, so she's transformed into one of Earth's guardians. So it's a unique spin on vampires. It's different than anything that I've ever seen. So, well,
your vampires aren't bad vampires.
No, they're good.
they're good.
Yeah, they're definitely the guardians of the world. I always put cats in my book. To me, it's like the cats have this power to do the telepathy from person, and they've got better perspective on the world than people do at some points. So in the Hollers transtemporal, it explains why they're trying to take out all the animals of the world. They don't like the cats because you can get an insight from it. So they're actually trying to kill all the felines.
The humans are trying to kill the cats?
Correct. Yeah, but it's more
because they know more than we do.
Right, and it's the people taking over the world. It's the ETs that are taking over the world are really in control, and they don't. But people don't see it, don't recognize them because they're in disguise. So right. They're disguised as humans. So yeah, it's kind of a unique book. So I love it.
Well, I can tell that. Do you have a following at this point? I mean, how many years has it been since your first book?
So I've been writing for about 5 years. I've got my website's deztovar.com, and I've got a link, that if anybody wants to get a hold of me, but it's, kind of keeping track of my books. And if anybody wants to write or whatever, I've got a link, like I said, give me some insight. I like getting the emails and getting the responses that I do.
So you have a pretty good fan base at this point?
Pretty good. Like I said, if you enjoy suspense, it's more like suspenseful, mystery, a little horrific at times, then these are definitely the books for you. But,
well, for aspiring authors that might be listening, I think the biggest issue for a lot of authors is drawing attention to their books. And it sounds like you made a Facebook page, and that's how you've been able to attract people to your writing.
Yeah, I've got Facebook, I believe Instagram, and yeah, I've got a few ways that I've got the following going.
Yeah.
I don't know. Every time I have a release and I'm about ready to have a party for this transtemporal, I usually have a big party and invite everybody, and it's just a fun thing. To me it's just fun, and these are like my new babies. Each
right.
book that comes out, it's great.
Do you have a party at your house, like a book signing?
Usually I pick a venue somewhere, and just kind of have it catered, and I've got musician family and friends, so they come and play, and basically just a big party. So
that's great. That's great. That's reason to write a book right there.
I think so. A good party is always fun.
All right. So what's next?
I've got some things going on. I've been spending some time up in North Dakota, and I've gotten a few ideas, and I think I might go again this one more year and wrap it all up in my next book. After the Howling Hollers, I think I've got one in mind, and it's Silent Hollers. So
this series is not over yet.
It's not over yet.
All right. Finally, if you're the entrepreneurial type, listen closely to our next guest who shares his adventures of a serial entrepreneur. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Bill Forhan.
Yes, it is.
How you doing?
Okay.
This is Alice.
Hi, Alice.
I'm calling to talk about your book.
Good.
Good. Where am I calling?
You're calling Florida, South Florida.
Are you still a serial entrepreneur?
I retired 5 years ago, and that's why I decided to write the book. I was sitting around bored, and I had to do something. So that's why I wrote the book.
Well, you strike me as somebody who has a lot of energy. You would have to accomplish all that you accomplished in a lifetime.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And modest. So listen, you felt the need to write this book. Is it because you want to help people who are trying to be entrepreneurs, because you see the mistakes they make, or did you just want to get down all the things you've done on paper?
All of the above. Basically, I wanted to have something to keep my brain working instead of watching 20 hours of television every day. And I figured at the same time people could learn about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And there's obviously hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs out there that like to tell their story. So I thought I had a unique story, and I was encouraged by other people to do it, because behind every transaction is a story to be told, whether it be an incredible sale done in one day that's worth $4.5 million to a stranger, up to something as simple as buying 4 or 5 motor coach business. So it's all over the place, with travel being the lead factor. What I try to do is buy companies that would help synergize the companies I already owned.
How did this all start? What kind of a kid were you? Were you the kid who could never sit down?
I was the kind of kid that started work in high school 40 hours a week.
Doing what?
I was a butcher.
You're a butcher. Hey, Bill, let me ask you this. Do you have a TV on right now?
Yeah, shut the door on you. Right? Let me give you the setting. Right now, here's the setting. I'm sitting in a bed
Uh-huh.
in a hospital as we
What?
talk. Yeah,
What are you doing in a hospital?
I have high blood pressure,
Ah, Bill.
and
Oh, I'm sorry.
well, that's okay, but that's the setting. So if I stumble through words and stuff, it's because I'm stumbling, trying to think and talk at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's nothing to feel sorry for. It's
Okay.
just a fact of life.
I mean, how many companies did you end up starting?
About 60.
60 companies. I mean, does it take a certain kind of person to accomplish what you managed to accomplish?
It takes somebody that has a lot of initiative.
I mean, why is it that most people fail? Would you say most people fail?
When they say 51% don't make it to the second year.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's half.
Yeah.
Half the people don't fail. And what is it?
I think of it as people setting unrealistic goals.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, the underfunded. That's the biggest reason. People have ideas, but they don't know how to fund the company. Without cash, you're in trouble.
Well, I mean, isn't part of being a successful entrepreneur, you have to get investors. You have to convince investors to give you money.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. What's the secret to that?
Well, I did a couple of public companies, took them public, 7 of them, as a matter of fact. So I went to the public arena to raise money. And I didn't take any money from any friends or relatives until just the last few months when I struggled to get the money to put this book together. I needed the money for marketing, because without marketing, like any business, the book is a business. If you don't market, you die.
Right. Did your businesses have anything in common?
Yes. I'll give you an example. I wanted to get in the incentive travel business. Incentive travel business where you go to sell destinations to corporations that want to motivate their salespeople to reach certain goals and objectives. If they reach them, you take them on a trip. The trips are normally exotic, 7 nights and 8 days to Europe, to Hawaii, to Rio de Janeiro, sales meetings to La Costa, the West Coast, the East Coast, the opposite of whatever they live. That's the first thing I started. I got into business for myself was incentive travel companies. Now, what you need for an incentive travel company is you earn commissions from your suppliers, your hotels, your airlines. So in order to earn a commission, you've got to be appointed as a travel agent with the various Society of Travel Agents in order to get commissions. So the first thing you do is get an incentive company with sales. Then you get the airline that will be paying you commissions. So that's one business right there. And the other thing that you need to do is get some corporate travel, which is a different industry. That's where you handle the travel needs of the day-to-day business travel that needs a car rental, a hotel for a night, etc. So I ended up buying a travel agency that had some revenues that could cut my airline tickets to get my commissions. So that's 2 businesses right there. We motivated salespeople to be successful, and then we take them on trips where they build relationships with their owners, senior partners. Because you take somebody on a trip for a week to London or to Paris, you get to know them pretty well. You have a chance for dinners with 7 different people, lunches with 7 different people. We set them up so that it's all prearranged. It all boils down to how much money they can afford to spend. And that's where your budget comes involved.
So you're talking about the company, how much the company is willing to spend to to take their top salespeople on these trips.
Per person. Right. In other words, an insurance company, which I had several of them, because you can imagine an insurance salesperson has the opportunity to win a trip by selling life insurance. It was the first business I started. Motivation Planners was an incentive travel company. Second business was I called the travel agency Motivation Travel. And then I said, geez, these things have a lot in common. Let's start an advertising company, because you had to start marketing the company. So I called that Motivation Advertising. From there, I began to buy companies that were related. Ended up buying 11 different travel agencies over a period of time, as an example. And I said another example was I got into the tour operator business, which again is travel. And the tours I was operating were to Biloxi, Mississippi. Why? Because they have gambling. Why? Because people like to gamble. So I started it up. I needed an airplane. So I went out and bought an aircraft. 727, 130 passenger airplane. So we'd fly him to Biloxi, Mississippi, and get to Biloxi, Mississippi. They have to get to the hotel. So I bought a motor coach company. Motor coach company greeted the people at the airport, took them to the hotel. Then we started selling. They get to the hotel, they might as well take some tours. So then I started a tour operator business from Biloxi, Mississippi to New Orleans and local. So from there, as an example, there's 3 more companies, all related in the travel industry. I sold Motivation Planners, the first company I owned, to American Express.
Oh, well, that'll do it. That'll do it. Did you ever have a misstep? Did you ever make a mistake?
Yes. I got into the sports business.
Sports business.
I bought a home up in northern Michigan so I could have something for the kids to do when I had some free time. And we went up to Charlevoix, which is an area where it's sightseeing, and it's also a resort community. It's on the west coast of northern Michigan. The first weekend I went in through the town to see what I was buying. There was a sports store there, 1,000 square feet, but no products. So I went in and I saw the guy. I wanted to take some skis out. So I was in there and I said, where's your inventory? He said, I can't afford it. I said, I can't afford to stay in business if you had no product to sell. He was a young kid, like 22, 23 years of age, college graduate. That was a runner. I said to him, if you put a business plan together, I'll give you the working capital you need in order to start your business. And he says, would you be interested? He says, oh, I'd love to. So my parents think I'm stupid to have my own business. I said, that's what entrepreneurs are. They're stupid, but that's what makes America great. I said, I'll be back up for next week. He gave me a plan in 1 week, which he did. I gave him the money, gave him cash right in the spot, took care of his debts he owed to his parents, filled the store up with $250,000 worth of merchandise. And I noticed the other thing when I came to the town had a movie theater that was closed up, boarded up. I said, what happened here? It used to be it's a lumberjack town. And they used to have, just like you see on TV, a real saloon with dancing girls in it. And it went from dancing girls to movie theaters. Mm-hmm. And the saloon, as it was, whatever business, when they had cut down all the woods, they were allowed to cut down the woods. It had been vacant for about 4 or 5 years. And this is a small town. It's 2 blocks by 2 blocks on the water, which gives us some value. Lake Charlevoix is the largest lake in Michigan. It's 16 miles long. It exits at Lake Michigan. And from there they go to Chicago and they go to Milwaukee. So right away I'm saying, okay, well, let's turn this into a movie theater. Things have changed. We don't need to have a saloon, so to speak, because there had to be a saloon right next door already that was part of the deal. So I ended up buying that, the movie theater. And the movie theater was connected to a brothel house. It had been closed for a number of years. It was 100 years old anyhow. So we went to the state and we said, we'd like to turn this into a condo hotel. And this would upgrade the image of the town. And we could save a few bucks by using it to be discounted. Long story short, we ended up finding a partner that was happened to live in the same town I lived in. And we built 15 units. That was a condominium. It's called the Atrium Inn. So you can see how it spun off to synergy.
So this story that you're telling me about the ski shop and the saloon and the movie theater and the brothel, I asked you if you had any failures. That doesn't sound like a failure.
Well, it's just one of the story. I decided to get into the business in a big way. And I bought two other cities, 15 miles apart, that I ended up buying those businesses also. And we were undercapitalized. I put $2.5 million, for $3.5 million into the business, sports business, called Adventure Sports. It was downhill skiing, mountain bike, and lost $2.5 million.
Oh my gosh! But you recovered.
Yeah, I recovered. The amazing way I recovered was I got into the business of testing blood for drugs and alcohol.
That's mind-boggling.
I made $15 million in the second year. Totally different industry.
I mean, the other thing that I've always heard about very successful people is you're not afraid of anything. You're not afraid to take a risk.
That's true.
It is true.
That definitely. You have to be a risk taker. We want to lose everything you put into it. Most entrepreneurs will risk everything they've got in order to be successful. And the majority of them are failed. So I'm trying to help the ones that fail to understand that there's risk. I say it several times in the book. If you can afford to lose everything you've got, then you can be a serial entrepreneur. And a serial entrepreneur is an entrepreneur that never stops wanting to keep trying and trying and trying.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you could turn this book into the basis for a class or a lecture series.
I agree. I'd like to start a movie with it. Would have romance to it? Would have danger to it? An example, we ran conventions also. And an example is it's outlined in the book, was a realty company that sent its realtors to destinations if they accomplish so much in sales.
Right.
Hawaii is one of the best destinations in the world. And I got a lead from my Hawaii operator, it's called ground operators. These are people that have motor coaches, and they meet the people at the hotel, at the airport, etc. Anyhow, this person was not returning my calls. So I got persistent. So I'm going to call this person every day until they return my calls. So I started calling it. At first, I found it was a gal. Found out that she was 30 years of age, had 2 kids. Everybody liked her. I said, okay, this will be fine. As it turns out, I find out they happen to be in the same city I have a client in Kansas City. What are the odds of that?
Yeah.
Being a mile away from where I already have $1 million account called Amical Oil. So I mean, I had some big name companies. So I finally I had to go to Kansas City for a sales call. I said to my sales guy, I want you to call this number every 2 hours until they understand you're not going to stop calling. I asked for 15 minutes at a time, and that's all I asked for. So sure enough, I go, and about the third day I'm gone, she accepts my invitation. She says, I'll give you 15 minutes. So that's why I'm going to give you 15 minutes. I said, fine. So I go to a flower shop. What do I buy? What do you think?
I don't know.
Hawaiian lace. I buy 30 Hawaiian lace. I call her reception. How many people in your office? Well, I don't know. About 30. So I order them in advance. 30 Hawaiian lace. I pick them up in the morning. I come into the office, and the fragrance from these flowers are incredible.
Right.
So the receptionist says, "Who are those for?" I said, "Well, the first one's for you." I walk over to her. I give her a kiss on the cheek. I give her the lei. She's blushing and all this stuff. I says, "Pass the word. If they come up at the front, I'll give them a lei." She says, "Oh, you're kidding?" I said, "No, these are for all you people, except one special one, which is for the VIP." So in a matter of about 30 minutes, the place was buzzing. People were running up to the front desk and getting their flowers, getting their leis, and especially LEI. And so finally, the VIP That's what I call her. Here's all this commotion going on and all this laughter going on. And the fragrance all of a sudden gets to her. She says, what is going on? So they tell her, she says, bring him in here right now. And she comes in, and we had such incredible chemistry. We just looked at each other. We just laughed out loud as loud as we could at each other. It was a humorous event. Before the day was over, within the first hour, I convinced her that we were the company that she should do business with. I convinced her that she should call up her current supplier and fire them because they weren't doing half the things right. So I said, I'll do that if you have an appointment for tomorrow morning to meet with the owners, so I know I'm going to be in front of them. So she says, I'll do it. So she makes a phone call, says, I'm here with an Hawaiian operator, and I've decided I'm going to use them to run the trip. I'm going to use you to help coordinate it. So I'm not cutting you out totally. And the guy, instead of getting mad, said, that's great because we didn't know how we're going to handle 4,500 people. As long as we get some commission out of them,
Wow.
we'll be happy to work with them. So 2 weeks later, we're in Hawaii, booking 4,000 people to come in 6 months. I had that customer for 4 years, 4,500 people. That's 4 years. There's a lot of people, a lot of money. So that's my story.
So now what? Now you got to get healthy, right?
Try to get the book to make me healthy.
Yeah. And you're going on tour? I hear your wife. You're going on tour?
Hi there.
Is she your agent? Get on here, wife.
Yes, I am. I'm his best fan.
Well, listen, you feel better, you get better, and get going on this tour.
Sounds great.
Okay, good.
Right. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.